Sometimes it's just nice to take a minute and reflect as to what's happening and what's happened in the past. Don't you think? Hey Google, how many people live in the UK? Can you imagine sending all them people, 67 million people, a Christmas card? It's not my doing. Fortunately, some of the text going backwards and forwards to the UK, I think I've been knocked off a few people's Christmas cards lists, that's for sure. And to be honest with you, it feels quite cathartic, quite uplifting, let's put it that way. Had to be done. No regrets. Moving on, moving through. I feel the need that we need to lighten the mood a little bit based on the last vlog we had. Phenomenal response it's had, by the way. It's been incredible. The comments are just they're not like one sentence comments. They're like full stories. I read every single one. I try and answer every single one as well. Wherever you are in your journey, I hope it goes in the right direction for you. But we need to lighten it up. It's not all about that, this channel. I don't want it to be like that. Busy down here today. Very busy. What do I need to tell you about? I've got two stories for you, by the way, and the second one's an absolute belter. Stick around for the end for the second one. There will be a link in the description below for it as well. But it's just a little bit of a roundup and keeping it light-hearted. Just keeping it nice and light. And I think they're quite interesting stories. Hungover Ken, that was the vlog I did 2 vlogs ago. All of a sudden, for no apparent reason, I'm there walking in the middle of the Brancos with the dog and with this bloke who you've never seen before, or you might have never seen before. Let me explain about Ken. Ken's brilliant. Ken's 75 years of age, I think. He's got 2 dogs. He actually has 3 dogs because he takes the next door neighbour's dog with him as well because she's poorly. So he takes the 3 dogs out and I meet him and we go for a walk in the Brancos with the 3 dogs. But the reason why I wanted him on the vlog, and he didn't know I was doing this, is because his stories that he comes back with are hilarious. He's got so many stories that are brilliant. And the ones, he worked on the oil rigs in the 70s and 80s, so he's worked all over the Middle East. So his stories of Qatar and Doha and Dubai and all those, phenomenal. Telling me stuff that you think, you know, we're talking about the current World Cup. But he's like, they were drinking in the 70s and 80s in Qatar. He said there was bars all over the place. There was a rugby club he mentioned, and he said there was that's where everybody went to drink. All the Qataris went in there to drink. He said also, you know, the Brits and the Qataris kept themselves apart. He says, but when the Brits were in the bars, he said, you used to see the Qataris men walking down the street holding hands. So it's the homosexuality side of it. So it's a little bit like two-faced, but the stories are phenomenal that he tells. He tells it, how do you explain it? Some people might think he's racist. Ken's 100% not racist. Ken comes from a different time. His time is the 70s and 80s when the education of how we express ourselves when it comes to race and situations is completely different to that of today. His stories can be quite colourful, but as I said to you before, he's a man that I don't meet on a day-to-day basis in the street, in the pub. We don't meet up and arrange to meet up. He lives on our estate. We've got this agreement that we meet with the dogs at 9:45 in the morning. I'll send him a text, I'll see you, or I won't see you, so he doesn't have to wait for me. And we go for a walk, and it's just the colourful stories are just brilliant. It just like bright starts your day. And what I do like about this is, you lot know I'm a Manchester lad. He's also a Manchester lad who lived in an area near me. I went to school at Wythenshawe for about 6 months, and then he was brought up around Wythenshawe area. So he tells me really the history of where I grew up, but not like the real history from like hundreds of years ago, the history from like 20 years before I was there. So it also like shapes what was I seeing at the time when I was growing up, and that's what I really, really like. And his stories, man, honestly, and that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to tell you one of his stories. We're talking about school days. He was telling me, because it's post-war, 50s, 60s, and he was about 11 years of age. I can't remember, it was late 50s maybe. And he was talking about 60 kids to a classroom. He told me the name of the school, I can't remember. 60 kids to a classroom, right? Imagine this, Manchester, Wythenshawe way. At break time, what they did was they segregated the boys and the girls. They almost like locked the boys in tennis courts so they could go and play football. And then they locked girls elsewhere in a playground so they could keep them separate. But what he said was there was the tennis court. They used to play football with a little tennis ball. So you can imagine all these kids running around this tennis court with a tennis ball. if the ball went over the fence, what they then did is they cut a hole high up in the fence so they could climb through it, and then somebody get the ball and come back. The story that I do remember though is, he said to me the other day, he says one time he's in this tennis court, and this is the story I wanted to mention. He's in this tennis court, and one of the lads just brought to school a live bullet. We didn't know what it was, but you just have to war, wasn't it? You know, he said, this kid came with a grenade. It's all right, there was no detonator on it or anything like that. But it's like, Christ, I'm not going to school with a grenade. And at one point, when the teacher's like on the chalkboard, writing on the board, this kid just rolled the grenade up to the feet of the teacher. And that's like, I just couldn't comprehend that. He said he must have got it from his dad's war chest or something like that. So anyway, a kid brought a live bullet to school. How much? That big. And then what they did, when the kids were messing around, shooting around the playground, they decided to put it in the hole. It fitted perfectly in the hole, apparently, he says, of the lock, I think, of the tennis courts. So they've put it in this hole in the lock. Then they got a 4-inch nail. This is true, 4-inch nail. Put the 4-inch nail in the back of the bullet and smacked it. You obviously know what happens. The noise, the bullet went straight across the playground, straight out of the school, across the street, and hit the lintel above a window in the house opposite, leaving a bullet hole like you'd find in the wall in the actual house itself. And the kids were that shocked because they're 11, 12 years of age. They didn't realise nobody ever spoke about it again. So I said to him, I said, what did the teachers say? And he's like, the teachers, man. Nobody told the teachers. Because you wouldn't tell the teachers, would you? Can you imagine that? That just like goes with you to the grave. And that's what they told me. It was one of the stories he tells me. Now, he comes out with these every day. He comes out like with belting stories every single day. And that was the one that he told me the other day that just stuck with me. That's the reason why I thought I'd take Ken and film Ken. The problem that we've got when we're out in the barrancas, obviously, is the noise with the wind. Whereas down in town here, it's a lot quieter. But the wind noise makes it harder. The second story. In the vlog with the hangover Ken, we were talking about a bloke called Steve. This story you will not believe, by the way. This story, and it's so true, but you will not believe it. Steve is a neighbour who just left the island last Thursday. He's got himself a little dog as well, him and his missus, and they've left the island and they're going back to the UK. And the reason why they're going back to the UK, very simple, is because the grandkids, they miss them and they want to go see more of their grandkids, which you 100% get. Right. How did Steve get to Tenerife in the first place? I heard the story and then I actually saw it on YouTube. There is actually a YouTube story of this and the link will be below. I'll put it below for you. One day Steve, just normal bloke, living up in the north of England, Barrow I think it is, needs to do a car insurance quote. So he goes onto the computer, puts his quote in for his car insurance, goes through different companies. In the end, he decides the company he wants to go with is going to be Confused.com because that was the cheapest price, most probably. Whilst he's doing that, he gets an opportunity, doing his insurance quote, to enter the competition where you get to win £10,000. So, just normal, like you would do, fills it in, enters the competition, and does his quote. A couple of months later, turns out he gets a letter from Confused.com saying, congratulations, you've won the money. Please come to the offices to come and collect your money. So he's gone to the office with him and his missus, and he's gone to collect his prize for £10,000. Congratulations, right? It's nice to see that people who have competitions out there actually win. People win the competitions, which is nice. So this is the bit that's now on the link below, which you'll get to see when he gets to the offices. Because when he gets to the offices, him and his missus, they have to give the paperwork in. And the paperwork they give to this bloke who's just doing an admin for Confused.com. He's being secretly filmed, and he didn't know this at the time. But then what happens is that the insurance guy, or the guy's giving out the prizes, Wally Trolley's on, the guy who's giving out the prizes goes, there seems to be a bit of a glitch. Just give me 10 minutes, or give me a few minutes, and we'll get this sorted out for you. So then the guy promptly leaves the room. So at which point, Steve and his missus are left alone in this room to have a conversation with each other. And at that point, that's when it all goes off, because Steve's like, I knew there was something wrong with it. I knew there was an issue. I knew we wouldn't get it, because sometimes some things are too good to be true. So anyway, after a few minutes unfolds, the same man comes back and he brings, obviously, what looks like his boss. Turns out his boss is this guy's the CEO of Confused.com. Sits down in front of him. He says, yeah, listen, we know that in the competition we did, the competition was theirs to win £10,000. He says, but unfortunately, we are Confused.com. We have got ourselves a little bit confused. We do apologise. It's actually not £10,000 you've won. It's £1 million. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So the neighbours up the street that I've met, who are lovely, lovely people, the reason they came to live in Tenerife is because they have won £1 million by Confused.com. As I said before, the link's below. I'll show you, just click on the link, you'll see it from there. But it's a phenomenal one. I'm going to try and find the link and put it below anyway. But yeah, so that's the reason in the vlogs who we're talking about just as we were leaving. I just wanted to keep it, as I said, keep it a bit more upbeat and just to do a little bit of an explanation behind it. If you've not seen the Hungover Ken vlog, I'll just leave that at the end as well so you can go and have a look at it so you can understand who we're then talking about. But as I said to you, actually no. What I want to say to you is, based off the last vlog that we were talking about, Behind the Smiles, I got a message off Keith again, which you might remember. Keith did the vlog a couple of months back with us. Hi Keith, if you're watching, I hope you're doing okay, mate. He sent me a fantastic one-liner, two-liner. He says, please remember, when you get feeling down, you're only having a bad day, you're not having a bad life. You're only having a bad day, you're not having a bad life. Last week was a bit tough. Today's a different day. I hope it is for you as well. You know what to do. See you on the next one.